What is happening? What is happening? What is happening? Welcome to another episode of Sneaks, Rhymes, and Life. I am your host, Lionel McDonald. So we already brought it once to the West as we do our 12 favorite albums of 93 as it's the 30th anniversary of those set of albums. And brought it West with my boys from Pyro, none other than Souls of Mischief, but I would be remiss if there was going to be any way that we were going to miss the one, the only Calvin Broderus Jr., otherwise known as Uncle Snoop, Big Snoop Dogg. So, yes, number 7 on the list, not in order, but representing the month of July, is none other than Snoop Dogg with his debut album, Doggystyle. So, this, along with Chronic, swung the pendulum back to the West when it came to hip hop. We definitely felt the energy from the West previously, obviously, when we had NWA and their legendary run, and then when they broke up, Ice Cube, literally was top of the food chain when we talk the game of hip hop. And it's funny that I'm saying Ice Cube and at the same time talking about Snoop because both of them were in Toronto this week, on top of a Scratch Bastard picnic this weekend, and we had Pharaoh Monch. So hip hop is live and well. We're the 50th year of hip hop. We're only we're 13, 14 days away, 14 days technically, before we get to the 11th of August to celebrate the big day. So, Galvin, you gave us one for the ages. And we talk about the best albums in 1993. I think it's an arm wrestle between you and Wu-Tang to say who was the most impactful. Maybe not the best, because I would definitely put Tribe in that category. But in terms of impact, in terms of cultural change, it was a whole different game when a teenage Snoop Dogg grabbed the mic and he gave us Ain't Nothing But a G Thing. But when he got his own debut album, which actually sold 800 records in its first week. Pretty amazing to see the impact that Snoop had. So, hey, he started rapping when he was 6. He did a lot of different things. Football was his big sport, and that's why he runs a young football league for kids like under 10. We know he got in trouble with the law. He's definitely a member of the Rolling 20s as part of the Crips gang. So he got in a lot of trouble. He went to Long Beach Polytechnical High School, and he got connected with 2 of his cousins. Little half dead, but he was friends with a guy named Warren G, and his other cousin was Nate Dogg. Before we knew it, we found ways to get connected with Dr. Dre. He worked with Dr. Dre on the track Deep Cover for the movie Deep Cover, and then joined Dr. Dre on the legendary Chronic. So this and Dr. Dre, after obviously splitting with NWA, really took hold of what we call this West Coast G-Funk. And this G-Funk transcended a sound, an era, and how we feel about West Coast music to this day. I got a few albums up on the shelf here. You see King Kendrick is up there, and Kendrick may not exist if the G-Funk era didn't come through. So we think of the G-Funk, and the first single that we got is Who Am I, What's My Name? And then we got Gin and Juice. And those are some of the most played songs in the history of not just hip hop, but popular music altogether in the 90s and even transcending to this day. This is where I wouldn't say that gangster rap started because we had NWA, we had Too Short, we had many other people but gangster rap exploded with Dre and Snoop Dogg. And I got my Snoop 187 California hoodie on right now, holding down with the Hyro hat. So shout out to everyone listening. It's available on Spotify, Google, Apple. Obviously, we got YouTube. If you flip it on iHeartRadio, you probably find us too. So it is without question the impact of Doggystyle is one of the most iconic albums we've ever listened to, we've ever had. And it did come with critical acclaim, but also scrutiny. People didn't like the misogynistic lyrics. People didn't like treating women lesser than a human being. That was just some of the quotes or accusations. And to a certain extent, you can't deny it. You can't deny how the lifestyle that Snoop is talking about degrades women, doesn't make people feel the way they should feel. Like the hip hop came up and it was about feel good music. This is taking hip hop in a whole different lane. But the sound and the impact at the same time, a lot of people gravitated to it. And it really made a very difficult challenge for people to kind of wrestle with their own moral compass on what to do. Many people love Snoop, love Doggystyle. My friend Nick will tell you Doggystyle is arguably the best album that came out in 93, right there with Midnight Marauders. But the impact of this album, and it's funny that Midnight Marauders, 36 Chambers, and Doggystyle all came out in the same month. Wu-Tang and Midnight Marauders came out on the same day. So when we thought we were done with said albums for the year, we got the best two. Along comes Snoop. So we think about, Snoop and his lyricism, it was like the realest of the real. This is how he lived. This is how he came to be. And this was backed sonically by the G-Funk of Dr. Dre. We first got hand, as I mentioned earlier, on the Chronic, and it's only transcended and led to not only capturing an area or a coast, but it captured the imaginations of the United States, Canada, Europe, Australia. This was global. So we think about this album, I said 800 records sold. It became the fastest debut selling album we've ever seen. Doggystyle is listed as one of the 100 best albums of all time. I think Rolling Stone, or was it About magazine, listed as the 17th best album ever. We know that the album, just in the US alone, by I think the mid 2010s, is already sold 7 million copies. I know we were in a digital age, so we have to figure out how the download game works, but 7 million copies it's already sold in the United States only. It is, I guess that is Diamond Plus, which is 10 million albums, 11 million technically worldwide. So we think about the sound and the sampling of George Clinton, and that's some of the knock that some people had about the album, that it sounded too much. Like they totally stole George Clinton's style, and that's what offended people. But at the same time, the sound really captivated a West Coast vibe and really made a whole movement come to life in the West. It started with NWA, it continued with the Chronic, and then it catapulted with Snoop, and then what was called those that signed to Death Row Records. So we had Warren G, we had Dr. Dre, we obviously had Snoop. It then followed with other people that were debuted on the album, the Dog Pound, so Daz and Corrupt. We got the first Rough and Tough with my Afro Pups. We got Lady of Rage that was on the album. So it was pretty amazing that this was an album for the making, despite its extreme lyrics, despite the feeling that it had for many. So if you think about this album, it was recorded predominantly in 1993. Daz and Corrupt were definitely in the studio. Obviously, the head or figurehead was none other than Suge Knight. We had a lot of people involved. Daz had a tremendous impact on what this album. Some people say he did as much as Dre did when it came to the producing. Ain't No Fun as an example. Daz and Warren G mentored those that helped bring that beat to life, and then Dre sprinkled the magic special sauce on that and made it come to life. So when we think about this album was cooked, was baked, and came out as an absolute classic. I think at the same time, when you think about the some people also had offense to even the title. And Snoop Dogg, call it Doggystyle. Yes, that is a sexual position, and some people really rub people the wrong way. But between that and how people felt about him just like jacking George Clinton style, or his sound, made people feel that way. But I think Snoop and Dre and Daz and Corrupt and many others that were a part of it took this slow flow and mastered it, and really made it come to be a sound that really helped to catapult the West. There's definitely sprinkles of Isaac Hayes and Curtis Mayfield that are in there. So it is such a unique, and you could hear the samples as you go through the album. And hey, I think his Dr. Dre's production became very common, but it was mastered and crafted by Dre in this 1992, 1993 area, where we got the Chronic in one year, and we got obviously Doggystyle in year two. And yeah, I think it's really unique that you kind of got Snoop's flow, you got Snoop's understanding of the streets, of how he thought about school, how he thought about the law, but and it came out in the crudest way. Don't get me wrong. It was vulgar. It was, some people could not even tolerate it. But I think at the same time, there was a message that was there. There was a feeling that was there. And one thing is undeniable with after selling 11 million records, is that people could resonate with what he was saying. People could resonate with his flow and his style. People could resonate with the beats. And that is what makes this album an undeniable classic, an undeniable, probably top 20 album we've ever heard from any coast and of all time. So you have to give Snoop his credit, his props. This album, peaked at number one. We had multiple singles. We had Gin and Juice. We had What's His Name? What's My Name? Lottie Dottie and Murder's a Case are two incredibly clever songs that were not official singles. Lottie Dottie was obviously a redone of the Slick Rick song. It is an absolute classic how he flipped it to 1993 West Coast style. So you have to give it up and have to give him his credit. Like, this album, from purists to the casual fan, would call this a classic. Not even a West Coast classic. This is an outright classic. And many people, it paved the way for so many other people, from Exhibit to Kendrick Lamar, paved the way for all of them. It challenged others to change and step up their game. I would tell you that Ice Cube got more life. I would tell you that so many other people got new flavor, and it went to another coast. When you think about Missy and Timberland, they says like, hey, we got to come up with our own thing in Virginia here. and really give us something different, something that the fans are not seeing or the fans are not hearing. So yes, there were other albums and maybe they didn't resonate nearly as much. You know, there was a time that Snoop was on No Limit. There obviously was the cost, pay the cost to be the boss. There was Rhythm and Gangster, and yeah, we had Neptunes on it, and he worked with a lot of different people. But I think it's hard to say that that was his peak, but that was his best work. The weird thing, though, I still think by in many eyes is how it got rated. And I think some people couldn't get over the content. Some people could not grasp what we were hearing. I'll go to the source again. The source, once again, under Mike, this album gave it only a 4 out of 5. This is no two ways about it, is a 5 out of 5 album. Rolling Stone only gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Los Angeles Times gave it 3 out of 4 stars. Entertainment Weekly gave it gave it a B minus. All Music gave it 5. Chicago Sun gave it 4 out of 4. So there's a difference of opinion of how good this album is. When you look at hip hop purists, this is a classic. This is an absolute classic and one of the best efforts that we've ever got. So we talk about the accolades. We talk about where this album ranks. Rolling Stone conversely says, despite giving it that rating, says that this is, and I think they did this ranking back in 2005, it's the second best album we've ever heard in hip hop. I don't know if it's that high. We think about 100 best albums that were done by New Nation, which is the United Kingdom by Black artists. It ranks 30. So there's a difference of opinion of where this album lands. But without question, this album is unbelievable. We even got the DOC that was on Serial Killer, and we know many people believe that the DOC would have been the GOAT of all MCs. No One Does It Better is maybe, well, for sure is in the top 5. Easily, you could fight for it to be the top 3, and some people think it's the best one. It's personally, for sure, top 3 favorite West Coast albums that I've ever heard. And I would go 93 Till Infinity, Doggystyle, and DOC's album. So it is very unique. It's great to get DOC until he had the voice injury, but taking Doggystyle, taking the flow of Snoop, and if you haven't listened, I went back and listened today before I recorded the pod, and let me tell you, the album sounds incredible. So we think about the albums that we've gone through. We've gone Alcoholics, we've gone Into the Stage. We definitely have had Souls of Mischief. We've had Eric Sermon, No Pressure. So we're rolling through this. Now we had Doggystyle. So that's 7. There is only 5 albums left, and it's getting really tough to choose. We know that Tribe, we know that Wu-Tang have to make an appearance, so choosing the last 3 will be very, very difficult. I personally, favorite songs that are on the album, this is for the G's and the Hustlers. I love Pump Pump is fire. Lottie Dottie, obviously. And I think one of the most clever songs, other than some of the other singles that are out there, is the Shiznit. So the Shiznit, the unique thing about that, they threw that beat on, and Snoop did that in a one-take freestyle. So yes, the Shiznit is actually a true freestyle. And when you go back and listen to it, you can hear Snoop flow, and it's a freestyle. There's no two ways about it. So hats off to that. Serial Killer is definitely one's on my list. It Ain't No Fun, another one. So again, literally, I'm naming almost the whole album. But Pump Pump and definitely the Shiznit. And what else was the other one that I said? Murder is the Case. Are just some of the amazing songs that are on. I think I said Lottie Dottie. So think about this album and where it ranks for you. It is an amazing album of so many classics that Snoop has put together on this debut album. Like there may be, from a solo artist, there may be not a bigger debut album that we would have heard until maybe we got to Eminem. That really kind of changed the game. Between Eminem and then obviously 50, they really changed the game. You could throw Kanye in the same conversation, but in the 90s, this was like from a solo artist that we heard on like one song. This was the biggest debut outside Illmatic. Illmatic is one, Doggystyle is number two in terms of debut by one individual artist. You can throw groups in there, you can throw favorite album, but that's my opinion. Nas, then Snoop, and then hey, I know Biggie's there, and people that love Biggie are going to get upset, but that's how I think in terms of the impact. And like Nas, we don't need to get into Nas too deep, but Nas changed the game. How the next 30 years of MCs rapped, and then sonically how it sounded from a debut artist, from a teenager. Snoop changed everything, and you gotta give Uncle Snoop, his props. So that's my passion and my love for this album. And I appreciate all the people that contributed to it. Nate Dogg, Lady of Rage, I said, RBX, DOC, Warren G, the Sam Snead, which was a performer and inspiration. You hear him talking it. Obviously, Dog Pound, Dr. Dre on the board. So this is a masterpiece. Big Snoop Dogg, Doggystyle. This is Sneaks, Rhymes, and Life. Thank you for listening. 5 more albums to go. We just finished July. We got 5 more to do to complete the year and my 12 favorite albums. Stay tuned to hear which one is next. You got some more sneaker talk coming in August. And we're going to do a couple fun things, trying to change up the game. So thank you for everyone for listening. Thank you for supporting Sneaks, Rhymes, and Life. We out.